for joining us. Today we're going to be talking to Sean Knapp, one of our teachers, and I'm just so excited. He's got some great insights on all the experience he's had teaching college level calculus and working with students in calculus and physics. But before we do, let me go ahead and introduce Sean. Sean graduated just recently from University of Tampa in both a bachelor's in physics and a bachelor's in mathematics. And some exciting news for him just recently. He got accepted into an applied physics program at USF. So congratulations, Sean, and we're so glad to have you with us, or I'm so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, of course. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we were just talking before like we started this a little bit about your experience with students and um one of the things you mentioned we could kind of like continue that conversation because it's so exciting is what do you feel like students really need to like know maybe something that they need to start doing or something they need to stop doing to be really successful with math and physics as well.
Yeah, like what we were just talking about, students really need to master the fundamentals first before they get into more advanced mathematics. To this day in my college career, I had classmates that were unsure of specific algebraic and calculus rules. And, in your upper level physics and math classes, if you don't have those rules down, you're not going to be very successful. And, even in high school, I had students or classmates even that forgot that, there were 360 degrees in a circle and 180 degrees in a triangle. And yeah, again, just master the fundamentals, take really good notes. I remember when I was just a kid, my dad would used to do flashcards with me. And if I got the correct answer, he'd let me shoot it with a Nerf gun. And if I got it incorrect, I think I'd have to do some push-ups or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it comes from a very young age, and that's like the great thing with a lot of the middle school students that I teach right now is because they still have a lot of time to get all of these skills and fundamentals down before they transition into high school or even college level math.
That's great, great. Like I had so many things that I was thinking about while you were saying that. Well, let's first off talk about like your dad. Like I firmly believe that it's like not just us as like tutors, teachers, but and the students, but also the parents. So just so cool that your dad was such an you like this was one of your memories. Like one of
Oh,
mine
yeah.
is my grandma. My grandma came from Taiwan and one of the things she thought was really important was I learned my multiplication table. So I rarely saw her, but this is like fundamental. So like hearing your dad not only making sure you learned it, but also making it fun.
Mhm.
Um, that's a great, great, great story. And then the other thing you're talking about, like the note taking and like dealing with middle schoolers, like you're saying they have time. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, can you elaborate more on what can parents of middle schoolers do right now to help
Yes.
them?
So a lot of the middle schools I work with, something I notice is that they have really good critical thinking and really good intuition skills, which is something that's great to have at such a young age. Where they need work, and again, I don't really know if they've taken courses like algebra as of yet, but something that they can focus on is, you know, learning formulas such as distance equals velocity times time, learning how equations really work, because if they have their intuition, they could easily get those other fundamental skills down, and they'll basically be bulletproof by high school.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds great. Like,
Mhm.
I think that would be amazing. Like high school is tough. I remember it was tough, right? And having that confidence in high school. So you're saying that like I was hearing like understanding it deeper, if I'm saying that correctly. Like not just like so you said velocity equals, and I apologize. I have to work
It's
on my
like,
physics. But like understanding it more, right? Like not just like the formula, but actually understanding a little bit more of how it works. Is that helpful?
yeah, and again, it's tough to um talk about the middle schoolers because I don't think they've taken a lot of algebra yet. But yeah, that was just an example with distance equals velocity times time, because if you are able to understand that and basically understand how equations work, if you divide a term to the other side, then you have to flip some fractions, stuff like that. if they understand that and with the intuition they have now, I think they're going to be very strong because back when I was their age, I don't believe I was opposite. I think I had a lot of the fundamentals down, but I did not have the intuition that they had. So I think if they also get the skills, I think they're going to be really strong in the future.
Well, Sean, I think following your pathway would be amazing. I mean, going into both a dual major and going into a
Mm.
PhD program for physics, like if you needed like if the fundamentals were so important to you, I want to tell parents, like,
Of course, yeah.
listen to this, right? Listen to what Sean's saying. Make sure you have really strong fundamentals. And I think I concur. Like for me, I felt like I had that cognitive, like I did some math competitions and so those were a lot of fun, a lot of problem solving, but I felt like there were gaps in my fundamentals. And so when I was teaching my son, I'm like, I need to figure out what is the strongest program out there. And so one of the things our group does is do Singapore math methods because I feel like there's a lot of fundamentals in those first five.
Mhm.
Like we talk about, like I'll hear people talk about like the first five for reading, but like that same thing applies to math. So, like, what do you, I mean, if there's anything at the top of your head that you could think of in fundamentals, but I know you talked about so many other things like note taking um, making sure that students learn. Are there any tips and techniques that you would suggest that would help them to know their fundamentals better?
So something that I would do is I even did this my back half college career really. I would basically go through the notes that I took in class and then I wouldn't copy the same notes down, but I would retake notes but pick out all the important things because you'd be surprised with I don't want to say a lot of stuff that you cover in class is unimportant, but there are some things that are far more important than other concepts. So I would basically go back, reread the textbook, reread the notes, take my own notes, and then I would basically just do practice problems for the rest of the time.
Well, Sean, that's golden. I mean, you make it sound like it's so easy, but I did the same thing. Like
Mhm.
I maybe not exactly the way, but I felt like notes are so important. I'm so glad you're bringing it up because
Mhm.
a lot of times I'll talk to students like, "We'll be doing a lesson." I'm like, "Did you take any notes on what we just talked about?" Like, "No." I'm like, "We just went over it, and then we're
Yeah.
talking about it 5 minutes later." You could at least look at your notes to reinforce it. I'm not expecting you to memorize it, but you just learned it like 5 minutes ago. We just talked about it, and you're forgetting because you don't have that reinforcement in the notes.
Yeah, and I mean, really with anything, but specifically in math, you need to go over it multiple times because, like, I mean, sometimes I'll even like talk to myself out loud if I'm just alone, and I'll just read my notes out loud and then write them down and then like read them out loud again, stuff like that. It'll really drill it in my head. So
No, and I and I know you're laughing, but it's a great technique.
yeah.
It really is. Like it's that multifaceted. Like you're writing it, you're reading it, you're communicating it. Like we would even you're bringing back so many memories. We would even bring like at the beginning of school in the mornings, we'd come with our flashcards or our cheat sheets, and like
Yeah.
we had a little group of students who would like quiz each other. If I knew I had a quiz that day, I'd be reading it out loud. I'd say, "Hey, can you quiz me on it? I've got the answers right here. You just need to ask me the question." So
Mhm.
speaking out loud is, I even tell some students like who are, I'm like, okay, during the test time, as long as you're really, really quiet. Some people like to vocalize it, so I'm like, don't make sure even no one can hear you, but you can even vocalize it while you're doing the
Mhm.
test or
Yeah.
talk in your head.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, those are great techniques. So what I heard was like taking your notes and then like recopying or copying the most important things.
Mhm.
And that's actually something that if anybody looks this up, Cornell notes like are really big about that. It's like at the bottom of each page, you go back through and summarize. So those are things that even Cornell University has put out there in the world and said like these are great techniques. So thank you
Yeah,
so much for bringing those up,
of
Sean.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you've worked with quite a number of students. Can you maybe? I mean, I think we've kind of hit on it about the problems that some of the students have faced. Is there, well, I mean, I guess on a side note, like, is there something that just like why do you tutor? What brings you like joy or inspires you to to teach these students?
I really like watching people succeed. If they put in a lot of hard work, that's something I like to just see out of students. I also think math is the most important subject. I think it's important to really reinforce those skills into the young kids. And also for me as well, it definitely does reinforce a lot of the concepts that I haven't seen in a while. Just like, the best way to learn is by teaching. So that also helps me out as well.
No, it's great. I love that. Like you get to see people go for like sometimes they really struggle, right? Some of your
Yeah.
students, there's certain parts where they really struggle, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, like when you make it clear, like I've seen your work, Sean. It's amazing. So when you make it clear and you organize it, and they get that clarity in their head, I mean, how do they feel afterwards? Do you have a maybe a story of a student that had that change between maybe like not understanding or something like that?
Yeah, so when I was tutoring Amelia in Calculus 3, one of the most difficult concepts in that class is triple integrals in spherical coordinates, because not only do you have to do the actual computation, but you have to visualize the shape in 3D, and then you have to, set up the problem in such a way that you integrate the volume like in between certain shapes. And I think I showed this to you on that one app that I was using. Like, we integrated the space between two spheres, and it's a very difficult concept, and that's something I definitely struggled with when I was in calculus 3. But I definitely could tell she was getting really excited and pumped up when she was like understanding, like, how to do this, because like this is something that like no one understands when they go through it the first time. So I think, having her have that extra edge when she actually does take the course this fall, I think she'll be really happy with that.
And a testimony to you. Like, I mean, I think when we struggle with things, we always look for even better ways to explain it. So I could see, I'm probably making a conjecture, but I see that like, you having gone through it in your mind of how to understand it yourself made
Yeah.
you an probably even better teacher.
Yeah, and it's also kind of cool because there's things that I screwed up on when I was, in an undergrad, and when I was going through a lot of the derivatives and integration techniques with her, I'd be like, listen, don't do this because I've done this before. So don't make the same mistake I did. So
I love that. I love that. That's one of the things I think that is really important in like teaching in general is that you're able to show the way with not only things that you did really well, but also to communicate the mistakes.
mhm.
Like students can learn a lot from what not to do as well as what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. Let's see. Is there anything recently that's been surprising? I don't know. And in your teaching time, something that you weren't expecting that just kind of made you surprised.
Yeah, I mean, something that surprised me was how smart some of the middle schoolers are, because there's a couple of those problems where they just get it somehow. And like I'll do the problem in a different roundabout way, and like I'll get it myself, but when they'll get it quickly, and I'd be like, how'd you do this? And they just were like, oh, I just eliminated the other answer choices. I just guessed and checked, and I'm like, okay, all right. So that was kind of surprising.
And speaking of that, Sean teaches our AMC like 8 classes, and so, yes, definitely. I mean, I think one of the fun things is that we get to have a group of students that come from so many different backgrounds and different ways of looking at the problem, and sometimes, yeah, that guess and check method will
Yeah.
just like, uh, they just they have that elimination sense, which means that they have that intuition, right? Like you were talking about before. Um, just to note, like, I really like that piece of, like, the Singapore math method, because I hadn't really thought of it being so valuable, like, being able to estimate or to be able to, like, kinda get an intuitive feeling of whether something's right or wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, like, when I did some research, I actually found out that, when people take, like, tests, there was like, this part of their brain which was looking for, like, whether or not something was right. And, students who scored better were actually the ones who were looking for whether it was right or wrong. So, it's a pretty interesting story. Um, so let's see. Well, we talked about the students a bit. Anything that parents do you think could do to help students?
Let me think for a second.
Take your time.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like before, reinforcing those fundamentals, but also exposing your kids to a wide variety of subjects as well, because, math isn't for everyone. It's tough to say that, but you can still learn math and not go into math and still apply it in a different way, because Allie, she majored in physics and math like I did, but she's going into biomedical engineering, which and I don't think is going to be as math intensive. But but again, she was also a very strong math student. So yeah, I guess my advice would be to expose your kids to just a wide variety of subjects and just see what they like, and as well as working on their weaknesses. Mhm.
I love that too. It just reminded me. So, it just yesterday I was we were looking up. We found out there's a restaurant in Orlando with a Michelin star, and so like I'm like, okay, I want to go check it out. So I looked up some other Michelin stars, and we looked up a YouTube video, and I'm watching this guy with I think they have well they said it's a Michelin star restaurant, and he was measuring the food. Like, literally, right? I know, the attention to detail that he
Jeez,
was
yeah,
measuring each slice and making sure that it was exactly the same width because it affects the flavor, like the thickness and the way you cut it. My son is really big on this way we cut the meat. It affects the way you're tasting it. So you have the exposure to all these other things. You can bring math into food
right.
if you have the knowledge of it. You could I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to apply equations, but hey, if you use a some people use like CNC machines in their cooking, right? Like literally you can write the equation and it can cut it for you.
Yeah, and something else too is that I don't want to say math is going to be obsolete, but a
Yeah.
lot of computers do math for us now. It's almost like you learn your multiplication tables, but then you use a calculator anyways. So again, it's that thing where as long as you more or less understand the mathematics about a subject, then you should be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you actually understand it, right? Because I think that and I want to speak for you, but I think like there is a because we talked about fundamentals. There's a deeper understanding. It's not just the light, like, hey, I've seen it, because then that has that same effect of like it's slipping out of your mind. Hey, I used to know that it was 360 degrees for a circle, but now I don't remember. But if you do get a really, really solid foundation
Mhm.
and you remember those things, then yeah, the applications are limitless. It's if you don't know it, then what you can't use it. But if you
Right,
do
yeah.
know it, I mean, imagine what you could do by combining mathematics and whatever else.
Mhm. And for me, there's not. I mean, I don't remember everything in all my classes. Obviously, we're all human. But all I need to do is look something up, and I will remember it very quickly, which is helpful because like at least I learned something with all these classes. But I know, again, like you were saying, I know how to apply everything now, which is good because even in a lot of my physics classes, my peers would understand the physics very well, but a lot of them struggled with math. And if especially in physics, if you can't do the math, yikes. So
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, I feel that I felt the same way. Like if there were certain classes where I didn't have enough knowledge base, then I would struggle. Like if somebody wanted to become, I don't know, like I think I read about this. One of my friends, and I might have him on a podcast sometime, but he wanted to become a pilot. But then he realized that like it needed math to become a pilot because of the schooling that was involved and all the calculations that they need to understand. And so he put aside his dream. He said, "Hey, I can't be a like."
yeah.
He actually said, "I can't be a pilot because my math isn't strong."
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of my friends, he just went into the Air Force, and like he's an okay math student. He hates it, but he'll like get through it. And so I talked with him the other day and I was like, yo, how was calculus two? Or he had to take some other like engineering course as well that was very math intensive. He's like, dude, I did it, but like I hated it so much. But
But he had the fundamentals to get through it, right?
yeah, he got through it. And it's kind of like with me, because I'm not really a big language arts or history kind of person. I mean, again, I'm not bad at it, but I'll just do what needs to be done to get through it. And that was like something in high school with me because I didn't struggle with it. It was just annoying, and I just had to grit my teeth and get through it. So
Yeah, yeah. Math is not for everyone. We definitely accept it.
yeah.
I think that's one of the things as teachers is that we like to, or at least for me, I like to meet students where they are. I definitely hope they have a joy of it or a joy, a satisfaction of getting like
Mhm.
that light bulb moment and an appreciation for it. And like the fundamentals to be able to like go into the Air Force and go into engineering or go into anything else because they have enough math that it's not a barrier to the success.
Mhm.
So there's the acknowledgement, but at the same time, like fundamentally, all the techniques and the tutoring is to help them be as successful as possible, right?
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. So we help them to I don't know, just do their best and feel encouraged and feel confident, like your story about Amelia. You know, seeing something that you know is like one of the hardest topics, and now she sees it and it's like, wow, this is amazing, and I can do it. That's
Hmm.
that's really joyful to see.
Yeah.
So I think you mentioned like calculators and stuff and being able to look things up online. I know like right now that wasn't something I had access to at all. There was no solving by clicking a couple buttons online. What do you feel like students nowadays are probably like facing if they're in the, anything K through 12 or college? What even people like um, what challenge do they face right now when it comes to like mathematics or physics that maybe they didn't have before?
So you're talking about a challenge like in the more modern world, is what
Yeah, like right now, like what do you think people are really facing? Because we know we just went through a lot of, I mean, the pandemic is still a lot of things
you're.
going on, but like some students were only learning online. They didn't have any like outside interaction.
Yes.
Things have really changed.
Mhm. So with, I think a lot of my peers in college, we were a pretty tight knit group, and we didn't really suffer that much, in my opinion. But something that I do see in a lot of the younger generations is that they don't have a lot of the interaction skills that I used to have as a kid. You know, a lot of kids are addicted to their tablets and video games and stuff. Not to say that I don't play like games on occasion, but you know, I'm not I don't play like multiple hours a day exactly. But I think there's a lot of smart kids, but if they were to brush up on their social and interaction skills, I think they would be even stronger, because there has been a lot of times, you know, particularly in undergrad, where like you have no choice but to work with other people because the concepts are just that advanced. Like you need other people to survive. That's just how it is. And I'm sure that's going to be like that in the grad school as well. So yeah, I guess that's my advice to the younger generation is to, you know, get ready to work with other people, because you will need them for sure once the concepts get even more advanced.
That's that's super important. Like we can help the students with getting their skills up and leveling up and advising them on note taking and how to study, but it comes not just down to like that IQ part where they've learned so much. They also have to be able to interact with others. um, a story that I need to find it again, but this one professor was working with two other mathematicians, and together as a team, they were able to solve a problem. It
Mhm.
wasn't like even though we often think mathematics in isolation, if he didn't have that team, if they weren't working together and collaborating and running ideas off of each other, uh, they wouldn't have made such great discoveries
Yeah.
or able to write such a beautiful proof
Mhm.
if they were doing it just by themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good point. I mean, we need to not ragging on video games or anything, but there needs to be time. You got if you put those hours in the foundation and growing it, it definitely pays off if that's something you need for your career.
Mhm.
So, you've given so many actionable steps to parents and students. So let's, I guess, turn to something that's like just kind of a fun question.
Oh yeah.
Something kind of random, but maybe also inspirational. We'll see. We'll see. It could be just fun. So one of the fun questions I have is like, if you had a billboard, right? And you can put anything on it. I know you come from a place of, caring about the students and seeing their growth, and personally that's a value to you. But what would you put on a billboard that, you could share with the whole world? What would it
Like,
be?
what is this like in the math context, or can this just be
It could
anything?
it could be, you could do one, both, or you could do one or the other. Yeah.
Hmm. I have a lot of like funny ones in my mind, but um, I don't. I would put math greater than symbol every other subject. That would be kind of funny. Um,
Hello.
yeah, that would be a funny one. I would say live your life like. Yeah, I gotta compose this in my head for a second. I would say live your life like no one is watching you. In other words, like stop caring what people think about you. That's that's a good one.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that there's a lot of comparison, and then going back to the social media and technology. I mean, we didn't talk about social media, but there's a lot of comparison out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like each of our students are so valuable. Like they bring a light, they bring an attitude, they bring a passion for, everything they talk about, from like baking to our coffee conversation. Sometimes we talk about coffee, or to like their passion for music or their
Mhm.
drawing or whatever. They always have like something really interesting, a different perspective to share. Some of them just crack me up with their one-liners. Like, where do you come up with the stuff? You could be on Comedy Central. You guys are great.
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
yeah,
I'd say that those are the two best ones. Yeah.
I love them both. All right, we'll have to put those somewhere. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Mhm.
So, as we kind of wind down, I think we had so many great tips. A lot of thought process for both the middle schoolers and the college age students, and getting that bridge between, going from elementary, middle, high to college. But is there anything like you wish I had possibly asked you? Some kind of question or something that we could share with the audience?
Something that you could ask me, I guess asking me how I balance my life with everything that I do. Do you want me to answer that
Yeah,
or
I would. I would love to hear that. I
okay?
mean, Sean, you've got lots of things going. I think you did sports, you do academics, you do like
Yeah.
your own personal, like the whole life, living life. How do you
Yeah.
balance all that?
Yeah, just a day in my life, I guess. So in high school, I did a decent amount of sports. I did cross country and track, basketball, as well as travel basketball outside of my school, and then I did tennis. And then in college, I did NCAA cross country and track for 3 years. And yeah, there was a lot of long days. I think
Yeah.
my junior year in college, I had the same physics professor for 3 classes, and he destroyed us really badly. And then I also had another upper level class, and so suffice it to say, I think I was studying 6 to 8 hours a day, not including going to class. And then then I'd also have to go wake up early and go to practice and go work out and stuff like that with my teammates. And so I'm constantly balancing things in my life, and something that I do that really helps me is just going outside, going for a run, just going out and hang out with friends. I mean, I feel like a lot of kids these days turn to things to relieve their stress that really produce the opposite effect. Whereas with me, I have different methods to just, always stay calm when my back is up against the wall, a lot of the times. And yeah, I guess that's my big secret. It's just taking care of myself, 7, 8 hours of sleep a night, always being social with people, and just like going with the just going with the flow. Because like for me in college, yeah, it was a journey. It was tough, but like I gotta say, I did enjoy it. I mean, it's not nothing in life that's worth it is easy. I guess you can put that on a billboard as well. But yeah, I guess yeah, that's about it. How I balanced everything out.
No, I'm so glad you shared that. I mean, that's so relevant. I think that with the middle schoolers that are going to high school, and then high school, you could have between anywhere from 6 or plus classes, depending on school. And if they
Mhm.
want to do sports or they want to do extracurricular activities, how do you balance everything and get so much like listening to what you did? You did so much, and was like, did you enjoy all those different activities you did? Like, you got a lot out of them.
Yeah, some more than others, but for me now, like I even when I was in middle school, I played like volleyball and baseball and like soccer when I was very young and like swimming when I was very young. So like now it's really cool because I can really jump in like any sport that my friends are just happen to play at the time, and it's just like super fun to just de-stress from everything going on. And that's the same way with like academics for me, and that just goes back to mastering the skills and the fundamentals, because now I have friends who shoot me texts and they're in physics 1 and 2 or calculus 1 and 2, or even like I sometimes modern physics, like they'll ask me questions and I won't remember it off the bat, but as soon as I look it up, I can easily help them, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people should watch this like multiple times because you've given so many
Yeah.
helpful tips of how to go from, where if especially if a kid is still younger, and like you said, has time right now. Um, that to get them to that point, that's my dream as a parent, that college was easy for my son, not the other way around. Like, he could start exploring and enjoying, not that couldn't be challenging, but like you could overcome the challenge and have the mindset and have the skills to be successful there. And then as well, like, you're able to help others because of
Mhm.
all the work you put in, um, initially.
Yeah.
This is great. Well, I mean, we could probably talk even more, but we will save that for some other time. But thank you, Sean, so much for
Of course. Yeah.
joining with me today. It's been a
Mhm.
lot of fun. I learned so much. I remembered so much. I reflected on so much of what you said,
Mhm.
and parents out there and students, like, watch this again, take notes,
Oh yeah.
rewrite the notes in summarized form, because these are big things that if you start working on them right now, um, you could be in PhD program like Sean in the
Mhm.
future. Well, again, Sean, thank you so much for joining me
Of
today.
course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. We're signing off, and I'll catch you guys next
All right.
time.
See you guys later. Thank you.